Scorpion. Fight! Sub-Zero win. Fight! Scorpion win. Fight! Scorpion win. Fatality. Fight! Get over here! Excellent. Scorpion wins. Fight! Excellent. Come here! Excellent. Finish him. Scorpion wins. Fatality. Fight! Sonya wins. Fight! Finish him! Sonya wins. Sub-Zero. Fight! Sub-Zero wins. Fight! Sub-Zero wins. your might. Fight! Johnny Cage win. Fight! Excellent. Sub-Zero win. Fight! Johnny Cage win. Scorpion. Fight! Scorpion win. Fight! Come here! Excellent. Finish him. Scorpion win. Flawless victory. Fatality. Fight! Raiden. Fight! Raiden wins. Fight! Fighting my body! Hey, yo! Yeah! Sub-Zero. Fight! Excellent! Sub-Zero win. Fight! Sub-Zero win. Fight! Sub-Zero wins. Fight! Sub-Zero wins. Fight! Raiden wins. Sub-Zero wins. Fight! Sub-Zero wins. Test your might. Fight! Liu Kang wins. Fight! Excellent. Sub-Zero wins. Fight! Excellent. Finish him. Sub-Zero. Fight! Scorpion win. Fight! Get over here! Come here! Excellent. Kill him. Scorpion win. over here!
Excellent. Finish him. Fight. Excellent. Excellent.
Get over here!
Fight.
Get over here!
Excellent. Fight.
Get over here!
Excellent. Excellent. Finish him. Fight.
Get over here!
Excellent.
Get over here!
Excellent.
Get over here!
Excellent. Fight. Excellent. Excellent.
Get over here!
Excellent. Fight.
Get over here!
Excellent. Excellent. Fight.
Get over here!
Excellent. Fight. Fight.
Get over here!
Excellent. Excellent. Finish him. Fight.
Get over here!
Excellent.
Get over here!
Excellent. Fight.
Get over here!
Excellent.
Get over here!
Excellent. Finish him.
Round one, fight. Outstanding. Scorpion wins. Round two, fight. Finish him. Scorpion wins. Round one, fight. wins. Round 2, fight.
Get over here!
Scorpion wins. Round 3, fight. Finish him. Johnny Cage wins. Fatality. Sub-Zero. Round 1, fight. Outstanding. Outstanding. Sub-Zero wins. Round 2, fight. Finish him. Sub-Zero wins. Round 1, fight. Kung Lao wins. Round 2, fight. Sub-Zero wins. Round 3, fight. Finish him. Kung Lao wins. Scorpion. Round 1, fight. fight. Well done. Okay, wins. Round 2, fight. Finish him. Okay, wins. Raiden. Round 1, fight. Okay, wins. Round 2, fight. Raiden wins. Round 3, fight. Finish him. Raiden wins. Round 1, fight. Excellent. Reptile wins. Round 2, fight. Finish him. Reptile wins. Silence. Choose your attack. Outstanding. Round 1, fight. Night Wolf wins. Round 2. Fight! Cyrax wins. Round 3. Fight! Well done. Finish him. Cyrax wins. Round 1. Fight! Superb. Kabal wins. Round 2. Fight! Cyrax wins. Round 3. Fight! Finish him. Cyrax wins. Fatality. Round 1. Fight! Sonya wins. Round 2. Fight! Well done. Cyrax wins. Round 3. Fight! Finish her. Cyrax wins. Round 1. Fight! Wins. Round 3. Fight. Finish him. Well Jax wins. Sub-Zero. Round 1. Fight. Jax wins. Round 2. Fight. Finish him. Jax wins.
Sub-Zero. Fight! Sub-Zero win. Fight! Excellent! 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 Sub-Zero win. Fatality. Fight! Sub-Zero wins. Fight! Sonya wins. Fight! Yeah! Scorpion wins. Fight! Get over here! Excellent. Sub-Zero wins. Fight! Come Sub-Zero wins. Test your might. Fight! Excellent. Sub-Zero wins. Fight! Finish him! Excellent. Sub-Zero. Fight! Kate. Fight! Finish him! Excellent. Kano wins. Sub-Zero. Fight! Excellent. Kano. Fight! Excellent. Kano wins. Raiden. Fight! Excellent. Raiden wins. Flawless victory. Fight!
We decided to change everything. We decided to change the presentation of the graphics, the gameplay, add completely new elements to it all.
Mortal Kombat 4 is the first 3D Mortal Kombat.
Why did Mortal Kombat go 3D? That's a great question.
I honestly tapped out at that point. I was not a fan of 3D fighters. I looked at 4 and I wasn't really vibing with it.
Going 3D for the video game industry was a little bit like reinventing the wheel, but with polygons instead of pixels.
Wins.
When Mortal Kombat 4 came out, I was absolutely taken aback that it was 3D.
You know, the transition to go from 2D to 3D is always tricky.
When it came out, I was insulted that there were no longer the photographed actors. Like, this isn't Mortal Kombat anymore. My biggest problem is whenever Mortal Kombat changed, I made the decision as the arbiter of Mortal Kombat that it was no longer Mortal Kombat.
Midway put out War Gods, which was kind of their first attempt at making a 3D fighting game. They take a lot of concepts from Mortal Kombat.
They had a 3D button instead of the run button, but it never felt quite comfortable. And so I was like, I really hope they don't copy this. I'm kind of glad they didn't do that. Instead, they added like the sidestep ability.
More of like a quick tap, and you can dash into the foreground.
In Ultimate Mortal Kombat 3, you had the dial a combo system, which was kind of like punching in a phone number. You have to know the phone number to do the combo. But fans were so creative with launchers that popped characters into the air and then comboing them on the way down with juggles that even those static combos became something that you could use to express yourself as a player. Mortal Kombat 4's combo system was called Universal, where everyone had the same combos, and not everyone had the same special moves. So you could still, you know, weave in special moves into the Universal combos to put your own little spin on them, but it wasn't the same as what you could do in Mortal Kombat 3. Mortal Kombat 4, I think, was one of the games that made the jump to 3D rather easily compared to a lot of other franchises.
It felt like it was not doing things as well as other 3D fighters in that space.
It was just so different. I couldn't get into it the same way.
Mortal Kombat 4 is one of those rare games where I like it a lot more now than I did when it came out. I could tell now that they were like doing something interesting, bringing it into a new era.
Mortal Kombat 4 is kind of that bridge game to what is coming next, right? It's their kind of first attempt at 3D. And so I think it makes sense nowadays when we look back on it to go like, well, Mortal Kombat 1, 2, and 3 are such amazing video games. Like, what do you do after that? Like, yeah, you have to strip it all down and rebuild it from scratch, or else you're just making the same thing over and over again forever, and no one wants that after a certain point.
As far as I was concerned, I loved Mortal Kombat 4. Between the universal combo systems, between the weapons, between the characters, the endings.
We had a deal.
A deal? I am not a god of my word, reptile. All deals are off!
I just thought Mortal Kombat 4 was this perfect package, and I played it to death. It's probably the game I've spent the most time in, even more than Mortal Kombat 2 on Super Nintendo.
Mortal Kombat 2. More characters, 3 times more images, more secret moves.
The coolest thing about Mortal Kombat 2 is I didn't know it was coming out.
I knew it was probably being worked on, and there was just rumors floating about.
I never even thought of a sequel. I was so fixated on the first game.
I had no idea. Nobody at my school had mentioned it.
It wasn't until I walked into it was an arcade called Uncle Bob's, and there it was already.
The first thing I saw was somebody slicing someone in half with Kung Lao's hat. And I remember being like, what? There's a Mortal Kombat 2, and it is crazy!
A friend came running into band class one day and said, oh, there's a Mortal Kombat 2. I saw this new character. He's a monster. He's got knives for hands.
Baraka was the first character I picked. I kept pumping quarters in. It was so exciting to see the advancements and the new characters.
There is a specific reason that Mortal Kombat 2 is my absolute favorite game in the entire series. And that is because of Katana's easiest in the world fatality. Walk up to the person and hit block, 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 high kick.
Katana wins.
I was immediately a master of her.
Fatality.
I still main Melina whenever I play MK2, and I can do that back down, low punch to do that kind of roll thing, and then forward, low kick to do that kind of teleport from the ceiling kind of thing.
It looked bigger, it looked better, it looked badder, it was bloodier. The animation was more fluid. It looked like a comic book, and that's not something I ever thought I would ever want from a Mortal Kombat game.
Sub-Zero wins. Fatality.
But like I said, I never even dreamed of a sequel. One day there it was, and it was fantastic.
The favorite characters are back, so you have kind of that step into it. The excitement was just incredible.
I remember seeing Mortal Kombat 2. It's the level that has it Shao Kahn, the big bad guy, who had the people chained up on the pedestals in the background. You were fighting your opponent, but there was a sense of storytelling in the actual level design, and that was one of the first times I had seen that and been like, that's really cool and that's really, really clever.
And I still bought the Game Boy versions, just because Game Boy was the system I played the most. And what's interesting is that Mortal Kombat 2 for the Game Boy is fantastic. It is an amazing fighting game port. It's an amazing fighting game for a portable system with no power.
I played a ton of Mortal Kombat 2 on Super Nintendo. I would have friends over. My living room kind of became a mini arcade. All the blood and gore was there, and it was fantastic.
Fatality.
It felt pretty darn close to arcade perfect. So haha, that time Nintendo came out on top.
Raven wins. Fatality.
I got put on as a lead on the second one, and that's where we really made the right decisions, which was nice. The idea was to just convert the code line by line and build the multi-processing system so it would work on the Super Nintendo, which of course is a different language of assembly.
Finish it.
We, I think, started, is November, somewhere like that, in 1993. We had to be done in July, and so we didn't show them anything until April. We just got our first pass of Mortal Kombat 2 for the SNES. Wow. The entire video department here at Midway is absolutely blown away at how well you have matched the feel of our arcade version on Mortal Kombat 2. We can already see that this will be the version to have, as the graphics and gameplay are awesome. So we just continued down that road, got the game done on time, and it scored really high. I have some magazines, I gave it 5 stars, and it was a nice project. I did think that it was done a lot better. They could ship a game that was more like the arcade, as much as we could get it anyway. Put the rating on it and not have to have green blood.
Johnny Cage wins.
I don't know if the Genesis guys would debate me, but I felt like it was the de facto version for at least Mortal Kombat 2.
And the ongoing debate that still sort of seems to rage on up to the present day, like between the SNES version and the Genesis version. SNES version is perceived as being like the winner, it's the better version. And that's like, I think, largely because it's like more complete version. The reason the SNES one has got more stuff than ours, because they're like both made for the same size sort of cartridge, is that it's a lower resolution system, right? So therefore their art assets are smaller, and all the little sort of size differences like add up.
Jax wins.
You end up with space for fatality.
Fatality.
The fact that the speech samples are missing, that's the thing that like kind of stands out to me. The way I got the Genesis version is like a little bit sort of convoluted. Basically, Paul had done the first one, Paul were offered the second one, and they offered it to Paul, which is like kind of logical sort of thing to do, and Paul turned it down.
Idiocy, stupidity. At the time I was offered it, I did think that actually MK2 wouldn't ever come out, that it would be banned. There was a bunch of people in the studio kind of talking about violence and talking about this game, and so I didn't particularly want to spend all that effort on a game that then got banned. Hindsight's a wonderful thing, isn't it?
So then they offered it to me, right? And I'd never done any Mega Drive stuff before. They used to think of this like a cooperative multitasking system. It's the first time I'd ever like kind of come across it, and like once I like kind of understood it properly, I loved it. I thought it was fantastic. Basically, I ripped it off. But every game that I wrote subsequent to that, I used that system. Everybody was like kind of happy with the version that I did, and that was no bad thing. I mean, it's just like a really good game, you know. Hard to mess it up.
So when Street Fighter 2 came out, I wasn't really too impressed by it. I think I finished it once, picked Zangief because I was a wrestling fan, and then kind of moved on. I eventually kind of fell in with a crowd that really got a lot out of Street Fighter 2. And so suddenly it became very apparent I need to get great at that game. One guy showed up and said, "Hey, have you heard of this other game, Mortal Kombat?" Like, no. What is Mortal Kombat? And he said, "Well, it's like Street Fighter, but you can fucking kill people." Okay, well, we need to go see this game right now.
I absolutely remember the first time I played Mortal Kombat. It was at Lions Family Fun, my favorite arcade.
My dad would usually give my brother and me $5 each and let us run wild while he went shopping.
I was at an arcade in Virginia.
The Q Lounge in the Bronx, New York. It was a space that was half smoky pool hall, half arcade.
He took us to an arcade 2 towns north, up to Santa Rosa. There's a place called Systems City. And it was like part skate shop, but in the back room, all the lights were off, and they had like 5 arcade machines back there.
I see this huge crowd gathered around a new cabinet.
And it was sitting there. There was nobody around it.
No one was playing it. It was just sitting there. What is this?
I just remember just like a big line around the cabinet.
Everyone is crowded around Mortal Kombat. It is simultaneously exactly like and nothing like Street Fighter. The film, the presentation, the real actors and actresses and all of that really just, it's so striking.
In Mortal Kombat, when you were seeing those 2 big characters on the screen, I was just like, this is the coolest thing ever.
Instantly, it was like, oh, it's digitized. It's real people. It was like, wow, this is incredible. It's like, how are they doing this? How did this game come to be?
I was blown away by how it looked.
Because it was a violent, bloody game.
Like, that's the first time I've seen blood in a video game that I remembered.
Even from a basic high punch, you just see blood flying out of these people's heads.
Liu Kang wins.
Even if I couldn't do the specials of certain characters, I could fall into a rhythm that just felt so good. Just like, air kick, uppercut. And I was, I feel like the baddest motherfucker in the world.
In a time where you didn't see that kind of stuff in games and especially in arcades where kids were running around with their parents, and parents were still freaking out too, kind of seeing what was happening.
My dad came up behind me. I didn't know this at the time, but the screen went dark. Kano ripped out a heart and held it up, blood dripping from it. And my dad went, "Oh, no, and whisked me out of the arcade. And that's when I knew I had to play that game because I was not allowed to play that game.
People getting chopped in half and torsos being dismembered.
Liu Kang wins. Flawless victory fatality.
Oh, I didn't know you could do that in a video game. I didn't know that was allowed in a video game.
And we're, 16, 17 at the time. So this is the most exciting thing in the world.
The endings and how every character had, even though Street Fighter, they had an ending, but Mortal Kombat was like the first thing that really affected me that was like, I really want to play all these characters to see what happens. And this is before YouTube, so it wasn't like you could just go on YouTube and watch it. You had to, earn it, right?
What's Kano's backstory? What about Sonya? That's what we wanted to know about. And, they specified a lot of it kind of in, various screens and whatnot. We were hooked.
But it didn't take long from there for that game to be literally everywhere. Every single pizza place, 7-Eleven arcades, the arcades that were left at that point, all of them had a Mortal Kombat machine probably within a month.
ashes of the video crash were still smoking a little bit. The whole industry, both console and arcade and everything, we'd been rehashing the same simple, character-based games. And as far as character art, at this era, the Japanese were really dominating things. And they had just amazing artists, and we really didn't have that resource in the U.S. And so it was, how do we compete? I was like thinking, well, why does everything have to be some kind of fantasy or, men in tights or little cute characters running around the screen? Why can't we get Dirty Harry for the arcade? It's like, and by doing live action, we don't need all these animators. Technology was moving and digitization was starting to happen. So NARC was kind of born out of that.
We were envisioning what is the next step. The idea of doing digitized imagery. Well, one thing is it would require more than 16 colors. The next step in our hardware design, we knew back in like 86, maybe 87, was going to be 256 colors.
Pixel art is great, but Warren's tools made it possible for us to capture video and then edit that video in a way where we could select the frames very easily.
Eugene wrote the operating system. I wrote the display system.
It was very early, and there was only a few boards that would do this, and they were very, touchy, and there was no tools, there was no Photoshop, there was no Maya. So Warren was really instrumental in creating that pipeline.
We couldn't grab real time off of a videotape, but we could videotape whatever we wanted and then still frame and grab individual frames. We've got the actual image, which is thousands of colors that an Amiga can generate. But then how do we turn that into 256? So I started exploring these algorithms to quantize or reduce colors from thousands to the best palette of 256 colors.
And there was always big problems with noise and getting washed out images, and the color was crappy, and
there's all sorts of tear and jitter and blur because VHS is terrible quality. But that's what we had at the start.
The development of the studio and the techniques that we utilized came from those guys. Folks like Warren Davis or Mark Lafredo. These are the guys working on the hardware and the software that we worked on. It's like, if you think about me at the time, I was like, 20, 21 years old. And so I was literally just inheriting all this work that had been done before me. And I mean, I think we all like to talk and fantasize about this garage development mentality and stuff, but really, there was there were tools and things that were happening behind the scenes that we benefited from.
Again, Eugene Jarvis with like his just kind of overall direction and focus. A guy named Todd Allen who literally wrote a debugger. To this day, I'm just amazed at everything that he's done. And Warren, he made it possible. Like if Warren didn't do what he did, I don't know if we would have been able to have done Mortal Kombat.
And Warren was always around, so that whenever we wanted anything else, a request came up, we just went over his office and talked to him, and he'd be like, yeah, okay, give me a day, I'll have that for tomorrow. And it's like, tomorrow, okay, great.
Besides being an amazing programmer and creating Qbert and working alongside of him and just being like friends with this idol of yours, was just really overwhelming. He's one of my favorite people in the world.
I don't go around talking to people about what I did for Mortal Kombat. I don't talk about what I did in general. I have to say there's a lot of people in my life, they didn't know about Qbert until they've known me for like 5 or more years. And then they would be like, wait a minute, you made Qbert? So I'm like, well, it never came up in conversation. I just don't, I don't dwell on it. Although I do have to say I am very proud of my contribution to Mortal Kombat. A lot of people talk about digitized graphics, but it's like they just existed. It's like they just came out of nowhere. No, people don't think that they came from somebody or from somewhere.
At that point, John was finishing Total Carnage and I was finishing Super High Impact.
I eat quarterback for breakfast!
When we started to talk about what would become Mortal Kombat, I think the initial conversation was about, hey, wouldn't it be cool to do a one-on-one fighting game?
John and I were talking about a game called Street Fighter, who had really big characters. The thing that stood out for us about Street Fighter was they had really big characters on the screen.
I think for me, it was anything to get away from the little tiny character sprites that I had done in the last 2 games.
And we were saying, how cool would it be to have our digitized characters?
Street Fighter was kind of fantastical hand animation, beautiful stuff, but their vision was, let's take this photorealistic system we have now and have a photorealistic fighting game.
For me, it was the opportunity to take all this inspiration from all the Kung Fu films that I grew up watching and kind of throwing it into a game.
The conversation went towards Jean-Claude Van Damme. At some point, just fixated on the idea of doing a photorealistic Van Damme fighting game. And we put a presentation together and we gave it to Roger Sharp.
We're thinking of Jean-Claude Van Damme. Let's see if he's interested.
The reason we made a video to pitch to Jean-Claude Van Damme was because another team at Midway had done the same thing with the Terminator arcade game as well as Revolution X to Aerosmith. And so we decided just to go that route because they were having success with doing that. We found the movie Bloodsport, and we basically grabbed a number of frames of him just kind of getting into a fighting stance pose, and we put the power bars and we kind of mocked up what a generic fighting game screen. And again, just to give him the idea of what the game would look like, how he would be the star, and how realistic the graphics would be.
And I reached out, and it wasn't a no. Whether or not things didn't happen quickly enough, I don't think that it was ever like a door closed. John and Ed thought, Roger, just forget it. Because I think we just kind of left it.
So that was just kind of like the way that you would pitch an idea. But as far as to management, my recollection was that we never gave a formal presentation. Street Fighter was really big, and when we said we want to do a fighting game like this with our graphics, there wasn't much convincing that needed to be done. It was, yes, that obviously is a really cool idea.
I thought it was a fantastic idea, and I knew that I had to still finish Total Carnage, and I know Ed was still working on High Impact.
Touchdown!
But I think that was the beginning of the conversation.
Maybe our next game could be this fighting game.
The team on Mortal Kombat 1 was 4 of us.
My name is Ed Boone. I'm co-designer and programmer. My name's Dan Forden, and I do sound and music. John Vogel, background special effects. John Tobias, and co-designer and lead artist.
There was other sort of support staff, but that had to do more with like the cabinet and the wiring.
A team being composed of, I think, 4, 5, 6 people was not uncommon.
You were in one of 2 categories, programmer or artist, and that was basically it. Everything felt like, being in a rock band or something, just a very few number of guys. He's guitar, he's drum, he's, we all had our own jobs to do, and we'd fight with each other, and we'd hang out with each other and go see movies with each other and stuff. And
certainly when I started working on Smash TV, it was myself, Mark Turmel, and I think there was maybe one other programmer at the time, and then Eugene Jarvis eventually came on.
Partly it was just the simplicity of the games of that era. 8-bit, pixel art that a lot of the animation was just done with graph paper. Say Defender, all the animations of that game could be done in a week.
A lot of people think that, somebody up high says you're going to make a fighting game and you're going to call it Mortal Kombat and it's going to look like this, and then we go, okay, and do it. That's not how it worked at all.
It's a bit of the Wild West. There wasn't rules. There wasn't any, well, this is how you make a video game. Everybody made it differently. And as long as cool new stuff was showing up on your screen every once in a while, management would, peek their head in. Oh, you got fatalities going. Good job. And then they'd leave and you just continue with it.
It was so pure. You didn't have to, have a committee meeting every time you wanted to add a feature. And
things were so loose back then. There wasn't really a workflow. It was like, hey, we need to get something done. Just do it.
It was just like, yeah, let's try this out, and see if it works.
And I think maybe a part of it was also that I wasn't conscious of might have been to keep costs down. I know what my salary was at the time. I don't know what Ed's salary was, but I have to believe that the development of MK in terms of the cost of us had to have been, I don't know, not much. And I remember at the end of my first year working at Midway, I was doing my taxes. My dad was helping me do my taxes. When I started at Williams, I was making $19,000 a year. He knew the hours I was putting in, and we did the math, and I was making probably $2 an hour is what I was making working at Williams, and I didn't care. I loved the work so much.
I know it's not a popular topic, but the overnighters and the, going out for breakfast, nobody told us to do that. Nobody said, stay till midnight tonight. If anything, they were, you guys are burning yourselves out and you gotta take it easy or something, so.
Because of the schedules and because of how few people there were, and we were all playing multiple roles, wore multiple hats, that there was just too much work. And it wasn't like we were being made to do this. It was an art, it was a craft, and it was a labor of love. So we were so passionate that we spent, all of our waking hours and our sleeping hours in the studio.
Some people look back and they go, oh, that was abuse or something like that. It's like, no, we were guys in our 20s who were motivated to do something cool. You were working on Liu Kang's, flying kick, and it was feeling good, and you wanted to keep perfecting it, and it was my obsession. It was like being paid to do a hobby. If a band is up all night learning a song, they want to nail it, and it's the exact same thing. It's completely self-motivated.
Back then, it was nothing but fun. It was just, working there was just hilarious. The secret sauce was basically we were just a bunch of knuckleheads doing whatever we wanted, and we were happy. My job on MK1 was basically to do backgrounds. Like John would do characters and I would do the backgrounds. Things were very simple back then, like.
One more time. That's great.
He would choose which frames he wanted to use and then cut the background away from the characters, and that was his job,
Literally after we shot the footage, I think maybe that night or the next day, I started stripping frames right away. We did a lot of playing around with lighting. We were just sort of discovering. I think we probably taped more than we needed just to make sure that we got enough coverage.
I remember after the Sonya's leg grab, having to say something along the lines of, trust us, it's going to be really cool. The image was clear in my head. Sometimes we forget that it's not inside everybody's head.
Okay, that's good. Okay, now once from the middle, all you have to do is just land right there.
Can you do that, or is that
the beginning part?
She should do it from the stance.
Right.
We were trying to get a film-like quality, but we wanted to just amp it up a little bit. And once we realized that pumping up colors really attracted people to our games, that was also our trademark.
a lot of the character design that I did for Mortal Kombat was based on the limitations of the hardware. So I knew that we had a limited color palette that we could work with. I knew that the pixel resolution kind of restricted what we were capable of doing. So bold colors, simple shapes would distinguish one character from another would be important. And I knew that a color palette that would distinguish one character from another was also important. And I was careful not to repeat those things.
The thing about the ninjas was, the nature of them. As you know, there were palette swaps of each other. It was all to save memory. It was a very precious thing in our arcade games. And so Scorpion and Sub-Zero, they were the same character with different colors. John wrote this amazing backstory behind them, making them enemies, and that added to the mystique of the characters.
In one of the pages of my notebook, I had scribbled, okay, here are the characters and here are their archetypes. I knew that, well, we need a hero, we need a villain, we need a sidekick, we need all these things. I was a big Joseph Campbell fan. I had read his books and I was aware of the hero's journey and the character archetypes that he had sort of outlined. I thought, okay, well, if we could tell implicit story through character archetypes, the players might sort of almost subconsciously relate to the characters in a particular way. So that played a part in sort of the character choices we made. I don't recall exactly why we did some characters and not others. I know that we were limited with the number of characters we could do. A few of them I remember not using. One of them was a character called Minamoto Yoshitsune. It was based on a Japanese mythological character. And another one was called Rakuro, who was based on, I think, a Japanese mythological beasts. Those two characters didn't make it in. I think part of it was because the names became a big deal for us. It's like, how does this name roll off the tongue? If a name was too long, we knew it was going to be difficult to display on the health meters. It was usually silly things like that would play a part in some of the choices we made.
Most of the characters' names came from John Tobias. A couple of the characters, he didn't have a name written down for them. He had Ninja 1 and Ninja 2. I was a little bit more of like a simple superhero mindset, so I started calling them Scorpion and Sub-Zero. Those simple names were kind of like my influence, but the authentic, cool names, Goro, Shang Tsung, Kano, Raiden, that was John's deal.
For Mortal Kombat 1, there wasn't a lot in the way of concept art that we did. Conceptualization was just limited to just scribblings in a notepad.
I don't remember many, if any, drawings of backgrounds, but there may have been some. I just remember kind of like I said, just winging it and doing whatever. Like John would say, I'd like a dungeon or something, and that became Goro's lair, I had already learned how to do the parallax scrolling stuff from Terminator 2, so that worked out well with doing parallax stuff for Mortal Kombat as well. I know there was one specific background that he wanted, and that was with statues, the statue background. Just make something look cool. That was basically the rule. I went to Chinatown, and just to get references and stuff, there would be, an interesting vase, and I would video that vase, and then I use that, and that's Shang Tsung's, one of Shang Tsung's thrones is like the vase, There's the dragon that was sitting on Ken Fedesna's desk. I just said, hey, can I video that? And he's like, cool. So I grabbed it off his desk, took it to my office and grabbed it. That's like in one of the backgrounds, and there's two of them. And then there's the pagoda in Chinatown that I videoed that and used that as, the courtyard, I guess we call it, I think. Shang Tsung is also in another chair, and it's that big roof thing. That's from Chicago. That's from Chinatown. So sometimes it meant opening a book and going, oh, that's a cool Chinese thing. Get the camera, take video of it, and use that. There are things from books in Mortal Kombat 1. I just went out and grabbed stuff. What looks cool? Kind of a guerrilla artsy sort of way. It wasn't really planned all that much back then.
One of the really cool things about Mortal Kombat and about some of the really great games, if you have a really great winning concept, often, you know, they got that game running in like a month. A lot of modern games, it seems like they spend all their time in this graphical wilderness trying to get everything looking so cool, and then they've got like 3 weeks left to figure out what the game is.
We had a very fast iteration. I would get art from John, you know, we put it in, and an hour later, we were playing it. And actually hit that.
Raiden wins.
The first time you play it, you just go, this is incredible. You knew you were on the right course.
Ed was like just eager to have people in and give them feedback on stuff.
A lot of times it was just, you know, someone, you'd have someone in your office to look at something and they go, hey, what about this? And then, you know, maybe that's a good idea.
Ideas could come and be turned into reality in the same day.
Yeah, in fact, I remember we would record a little bit of footage.
Okay, one more time. All right, that's good.
And it wasn't until Ed actually got the frames and could get them in the game, not until that point would we know that we were making the right choices.
When we were making this game, Street Fighter II was the big rage, and I was a huge admirer of that game. At the same time, I felt like there was a little bit more ceiling room in terms of how outrageous you can get with the moves. We wanted characters using magic, disappearing, teleporting, doing all these kind of unpredictable things. And a lot of the moves were constructed from kind of almost like scraps. Kano's ball was from his flipping animation. Scorpion's teleport was from his jump punch animation. You know, Scorpion throwing a spear and pulling somebody in, that, you know, it was something that I remember I thought of that was just an outrageous move that wasn't seen in any other fighting game.
Right, although we used to try to do the wind up and throw is usually like 5 frames maybe. Like if you went like
yeah, something like that.
It was one of those spur of the moment, inspirational ideas that ended up becoming like very signature, very iconic to Mortal Kombat.
The way he was implementing them was so interesting because he uses the frames of animation, and he was, as a programmer, would move them around to do things. Like he would define like how things animated across the screen.
When we did the Liu Kang flying kick, you gotta stop him once he makes contact, and it'll make the impact feel like it's a lot more intense and more forceful. Iterating again and again how important it is that we get the timing of all these things correct.
Other than, you know, how John would define what the actual frames of animation were, Ed defined how things moved around.
There's little nuances that are put into the game that a lot of players don't identify, but they just know that it feels good, and they're not sure why.
I think that was a hard lesson to learn back in the day of, hey, I want this animation to be really smooth and I want it to be like 100 frames. And it's like, no, it doesn't feel good. It doesn't feel good. And it has to feel good.
Like, it's got to have impact. Impact and drama, you know, that's what people are going to respond to.
Get over here, you know, the uppercut was such a big, ridiculous reaction. Getting the animation of the character, launching them into the air, putting the blood on it, being knocked down, and
they shake the screen.
And the sound call that Dan Forden did.
It's like, no, we need like a really big sound for a hit. It's like, okay, so I made like a really big sound for a hit. The scream of the attacker. The victim, you know, yelling as he flies away. Put all that stuff together, it's like boom. It's like, oh my God.
I remember we were just walking around just doing uppercuts again and again and going, you know, God, that feels so good, that feels so good.
That's how people knew when something was cool in any game. People were gonna be like, holy smokes. And now you know you have something. And then, so that, and then the fatality.
Like, fatalities were the big thing that made us a hit.
You know what would be a cool ass move?
One more time. All right, that's cool.
Do ninjas ever have any sort of...
That was cool, dude. What was that?
You pull something like an arrow or whatever, it's stuck into the other guy, and it dragged him across the...
Didn't you say...
Right, although we used to try to do the wind up and throw is usually like 5 frames maybe. Like if you went like
yeah, something like that. You can do the wind up. Maybe something more like you do like this, because you know what I'll do? I'll like trail the rope.
Right. Can you make where you throw it the plane? Like I want the thing to hit the guy in the chest, you know? Because we have a bunch of frames from big now, and we use that as a drag. So when you stop, your arm is parallel with your chest, as opposed to way down here.
Okay, so try to do it chest level.
Okay.
A little bit more of a wind up. Then that would be alright, because I could do like a little thing of the rope more like this, like it's in, like a little snake thing. Oh, you know what? Wait, you know what we should do? After he does that, we should have him do.
Well, I think he ought to do like a.
Yeah, okay. So, do the throw, and then we need some kind of pull back.
Pull your hands together and do that.
Okay. Yeah.
When you try your wind up with a little more like right now you're kind of just going.
Okay, one more time.
Raiden wins.
Street Fighter had this feature which I loved and hated at the same time. You can get your opponent dizzy. I loved the fact when I was the aggressor and saw my opponent dizzy, you're almost like salivating at this free hit that you get. And then I hated the idea of being the victim. I put the dizzy feature at the end of the fight. You just get like one last hit, and everybody would do an uppercut as your kind of like payoff. We had a feature that we had dropped in the game where Shang Tsung, when he would defeat you, he would take a sword out and he would like cut your head off. And we weren't going to use it because we were out of space, but we still had the animations of all the characters falling to their knees without a head. One day I just kind of piecemealed the idea of Johnny Cage uppercutting the opponent with this uppercut animation, and then using the animations of the character with his head, you know, cut off.
Johnny Cage wins. Flawless victory fatality.
I showed it to John, I showed it to the rest of the team, and everybody lost their mind, and we have to do this. The fact that we gave the players the ability to actually perform this kind of death blow, this kind of killing move, was really the birth of that idea. Some people were kind of like saying, I don't think we can get away with, you know, letting the player kill the other player. So we showed it to management, and they loved it.
I was surprised that we could include the level of blood spattering around that we did, but of course, you know, when I was working on Mortal Kombat, I had just come from Smash TV and Total Carnage, and so, you know, the levels of blood spattering around the screen wasn't new to me.
From that point on, it was, okay, now we got to think of fatalities for all the characters. Some of the later characters, we actually grabbed animations of them, you know, Kano ripping the heart out, Sonya doing the kiss of death and all that. The spine rip was a suggestion from John Tobias referencing the movie Predator, and he said, why don't we do what they did in Predator where you pull the head out?
It's just like, oh, it was just like, oh my God.
And I remember saying, you know, I think that's probably crossing the line. We can't do it. Again, once we mocked it up, put it into the game, you know, there was no turning back. Everybody was just losing their mind.
And if anything, I felt like there was a bit of encouragement coming from other folks, you know, around the office, just because of the excitement that it drew from the players.
Everybody had to see this. No one had ever seen somebody removing someone's spinal cord. It's interesting, it made it so much more emotional. It just like, you're just like, yeah! You know, it's almost like that barbaric, primal emotion, like, yeah! You know, like,
we never performance captured a fatality for Liu Kang. But there were some animations that we had not used. One of them was this really cool cartwheel kick.
Whoa. Yeah, let's grab that again, even if we don't use it. Right. We'll use it someplace.
We were both like, wow, we'll find a place for that. When it came time to do Liu Kang's fatality, we just spliced on the uppercut animation at the end of it, and it wasn't disgusting, it wasn't gross, it wasn't shocking.
Liu Kang wins.
And we just kind of reasoned with ourselves to say, well, Liu Kang's the hero, he's a Shaolin monk, he's peaceful, heroes don't kill people, so he just gave him a big uppercut. The process of adding fatalities into the game created so much energy in the whole studio in terms of their excitement for the game that we knew there was no backing out of it at that point.
again, you're in a very small screen environment. You really have to exaggerate things. You have to make it just outrageous.
Scorpion wins.
Found the Holy Grail. It's like hitting the lottery. You know, it was something that we knew was going to be a signature part of Mortal Kombat.
I always judge a great game by how loud players get when you play. You yell at your friends and laugh, and the volume level is a measure of a good game for me.
And like I said, it was just fun and it was happy, and that may be the secret sauce.
Again, when you see people playing the game and they're losing their minds and they're reacting to it, there's your fuel. Yeah. There's your fuel for the next, for the next year to do it. So.
Who put the K in Kombat?
I did. I put the K in Kombat. I didn't come up with a name, but the K. This is my story. This is my memory, anyway.
I came up with Mortal and the K instead of a C.
Yeah, well, you know what's going to happen? We're going to come up with all the names. We're all going to like them, and Ed's going to hate every one of them. Why? DEFCON is overused. Where? Everywhere. I've heard that so many times.
Yeah, every time you watch War Game.
Ed's probably right behind me, isn't he? Like, oh, no, you didn't.
I think there's different stories going on. This is my recollection. It's been 30 years. We had a bunch of words written on a grease board.
We didn't have a name, so there was a bunch of possibilities, and one of them was Mortal Kombat.
Kombat was written, I don't know if it had a K at the time, but Steve Ritchie, he said the words, "What about Mortal Kombat?"
They had Kombat on their whiteboard, but they were all a lot younger than me, and I'm not sure they ever heard of the phrase, "they fought in Mortal Kombat," meaning somebody's gonna die. It is what this game is about. It's Mortal Kombat.
And when he said that, from my perspective, it was like, whoa, there's the name right there. But I don't remember. Do you remember where the K came from?
Yeah, so what I remember was that. And then I think we went to legal with that name, Mortal Kombat, with a C. And they came back and said no, because they couldn't trademark it. Because it was, I guess, a common term. I remember it was John Vogel, right, who wrote the K.
Yeah, yeah.
And in fact, he might have done that before that conversation with the legal department.
As a joke, I was in the room with Ed, and as a joke, I changed the C to a K, and we were like laughing about it. Ha ha ha, that'd be funny, oh, that's so stupid. And then, so I said, all right, and I was putting it back to a C, and he goes, no, leave it, just leave the K. And so that's my memory as how it happened.
No, it was me, because the C was like, I don't know, just look cooler with the K. That's my thoughts.
And then I think we went back to legal and said, what about if it has a K? And then they went away, and then they came back and said, yes, you can. If you put a K on it, we can trademark it.
Actually, John Vogel's involvement does ring a bell for me.
I don't think I was enamored with the K. I thought it was goofy. And then when the realization hit that, well, if we change it with a K, we can use Mortal Kombat, it's like, oh, damn it. We're going to give it, like Vogel was right.
Yeah.
So whether you hate me or love me for it, now C's are now K's.
This is the sound area. This is where they make all the sounds for the games.
I am an audio director here at NetherRealm. The sound guy, like gotta get the voices in.
Dan shows you cool stuff every couple of days. He just comes in and you go, great, this is awesome.
And he's a lot like Ed, where I just have this confidence that, he's going to go away and come back with something spectacular.
That's the Johnny Cage Nut Crunch, I believe. Didn't someone make a candy bar, Johnny Cage Nut Crunch bar?
Again, we didn't know what we were doing, so it's just, okay, it's a fighting game, a lot of yelling, a lot of pain. I don't think we had enough memory to record, okay, this is Scorpion's voice, this is Sub-Zero, so we just, like the men, we just mixed and matched. I think Sonya was the only female in the first one, so we had obviously a female voice for that, and that was hers. But the rest of them, I think, would just be shared. We just get the talent, which was just people around the studio. It's not like we were hiring people to come in and do this.
We recorded me as the announcer, as Shang Tsung. Liu Kang wins. Finish him.
Liu Kang wins. Fatality.
Fatality. All of those kind of classic sound calls was me, because we didn't have somebody with a better voice. Later on, we found Steve Ritchie, who had a much better voice in terms of like an announcer.
Baraka wins. Flawless victory. Fatality.
I did a terrible Bruce Lee impersonation for Liu Kang. I think I did a yell for Kano.
Kano wins.
But I was also the voice of Scorpion, yelling, get over here.
Get over here. Excellent. Come here.
I had worked with Dan Forden for many years at the time. I remember there was another sound guy who thought that was the stupidest thing in the world. And it kind of was, why would a ninja, yell, get over here? That's such like an American kind of thing.
Wins.
The idea was, again, the outrageous presentation. We really wanted to have, just yelling and loudness in general into the game. From something that became with such silly roots and beginnings, you can't imagine Scorpion not having the get over here.
Ed would get me, this is back in the days of VHS, right? He would get me a playthrough of the background that I'd be working on. These are the instruments that I have, and look at the background, trying to think of like, well, what makes sense musically for this?
You try to imagine the action of playing the game and what the music's gonna do to like get you revved up.
Ever since, I don't know, the 70s, early 70s even, but always liked progressive rock a lot. So a friend of mine turned me on to King Crimson in high school, and that's been like a love of mine ever since. And so there's no doubt that there's a lot of King Crimson influence in the Mortal Kombat music that I wrote over the years. Like the very first tune, it's a melody in a diminished scale, harmonized at the fifth. So that sounds like a lot of King Crimson stuff. I think they pretty much liked everything I did. I don't remember doing over too many things. Now and then there would be like, maybe you should try this instead of that, and some sort of corrective feedback, but for the most part, it's just we were just kind of making it up as we went along.